Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. Just gonna wait here to make sure that the audio is streaming properly and that everything is coming through properly as well. The training lasts approximately an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer. Basically depends on some load times. Please feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a particular feature, and I'll try to address the questions as I see them. Please be aware that we do record these trainings so you can come back at a later time and finish watching the training, as well as just grab the URL and send them to other staff members who may need training as well. And since it's 10 o'clock, let's go ahead and get started. So on the screen here, you see our login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar towards the top of the page and click on the login link there. To log into your Dash account, we need 3 pieces of information. The first and probably most important is your email address. Right? Each user will have their own email address to log in with. We then need your password, and then lastly, your account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you don't have, say, your password, then you can go down here to the bottom right above the sign-in bar and click on the Forgot Your Info link. And when you click on that, it flips it around. We still need your email address, right? That's this top one up here. And then we need one of these two, right? Either the account name, right, company name, or a phone number on the account. Now that's a phone number that typically your customers call in, right? Not a device phone. So typically the easiest is your email address and the account name. You click on Reset Password. The system will then send you an email. It has a link that lets you log in initially. That login link, though, is only allows you to change your password. It won't let you do anything else. Once you're done changing your password, it logs you back out, takes you back here to our login page, and then you simply log back in. Now, part of that is so you get the practice of typing in your password, but you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. Now, I do recommend bookmarking this page, especially if you're a system admin, as you'll probably come here fairly regularly. But let's go ahead and click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into several times a week. So I'm going to be directed right to the dashboard page, which just gives me a snapshot of what my account is currently set up as, or what's going on with it. For you, when you first log in, you're going to be sent to your account page. Now, once the pages start loading properly, which is taking its time, now I can get back to my account page by clicking up my name here at the top right. And you see here, the main thing that people change is your password. Right? You just click Edit here, and it would expand out to allow you to change your password. Over here on the left, you also have your account level settings. Typically, the main thing that's changed is the time zone and languages, or display language, basically for what the web page would display as. Now, as I said, this is a test account, so I don't have everything you have. On your accounts under here, under where it says user, there'll be another section for billing information. This is where you would see things like your plan information, right? You can see your invoices, you see who the default billing contact is, right? So the person we send the invoices to, and you can update your credit card information. Oops, what just happened here? Okay. Sorry about this. I'm not quite sure why it's taking so long to load. It's loading fine there. All right. Let me see if I can restart the browser here on the streaming software. Sorry about this. There we go. Very strange. Okay. All right. So now that we got the dashboard back, um, so at the top again, you can click on your name at any time to get back to that account page to like change your password, etc. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb. Basically, that means you're not taking calls. Right? Calls to you typically go to voicemail or not even be offered to you at all. Now, the reason I don't have it on my user is that I am part of an ACD queue, and those two features don't play well together. Then over here further to the right, you have the question mark or help icon. Now, three of these options will always be here. The fourth one only shows up under a particular set of circumstances. So first up, chat with us. This opens up the chat window at the bottom right of your browser, allows you to chat with one of our support staff members so they can walk you through a feature. Learn more opens up a new tab and takes you to our support guides. Right, so our support.virtualpbx.com. So again, you can look at write-ups of a particular feature with screenshots or videos. The online store, this opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. That's where you can order things like a router or VoIP phones, etc. And then the fourth one, which is the optional one, is the web phone. This only shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. And once it's there, it will open up a new tab and take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. It does not work with the mobile versions of those browsers. Then we've got the menu icon or the hamburger icon, right? These three horizontal lines. This will take you to other dash features. We'll primarily be here on the dashboard, but we will touch on these other ones. Then we have the logout icon here, which logs you out of your account. Now here in the center, we have total users, right? So these are people on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you have, the higher your bill. Then I have total devices showing me I have 37, and then a breakdown. Now these breakdowns are general, right? So first up, we have soft phone. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as any third-party soft phone apps you might be using. It could also be in reference to a third-party soft phone credentials that you're using to use with a physical VoIP phone. It's a way to manually program or provision a phone. Next up, we have SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone. SIP is a kind of VoIP phone, right? So VoIP, I should explain, stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. SIP is a subtype. There's a different set of protocols. Now this is hardware and typically connects with an Ethernet cable to your router, so then you can make and receive calls. There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market, so if you're shopping, you want to make sure that you're looking for a SIP compliant or SIP compatible phone. Cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. The web phone, again, that's that Chrome or Firefox device. Technically, a web phone is a kind of soft phone. However, it's was developed later. That's why it has its own separate bucket. And then landline, pretty self-explanatory. Now, unregistered devices, I have, looks like 3 of them. This is in relation to my SIP phones. So 3 of them are unregistered. That means we can't communicate with them. Now, that could simply be because the phone isn't plugged in, right? It could be because someone is having an internet outage, right? Or their ISP is having a maintenance, so they lost internet connection. We don't know. All of the system is saying we can't send calls to it. Right, total numbers, these are your phone numbers on your account. Now, these are not for like your cell phone numbers, landline numbers. These are your customer phone numbers, right? So numbers your customers can call to, speak to you, right? Now we have a couple of breakdowns here. So we have the assigned numbers and the spare numbers. Assigned numbers means you're using it. Someone can call that number and speak to somebody or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Right? Spare numbers counts towards your allotment of phone numbers. Right? Each account has a certain amount of numbers included as part of their monthly plan price. But spare numbers are you're simply not using it right now. It's like, for instance, you're about to expand to a new geographic area, right? You're opening a new store in a new city, has a different area code. You may have grabbed a phone number for that area code ahead of time, right? Test it. Yeah, I would recommend when you do that, test the number first, but then put it in spare numbers until it's ready for that store to open, right? Now you can then use that number to prepare your marketing materials, etc. All right. Next up, we have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free just means US Canada toll-free. Right, 800 number, 888 number, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So if you have a number in Chicago, shows up here, same as if you had a number in, say, San Jose, California, still counts as USDID. You can have an international phone number on your account if you would like. If you're interested in adding them, you'd want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they would need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. Down here, I've got conference bridges, and this just means I've enabled the ability or the conference feature on 3 of my users, right? So I have 3 users who can host or moderate a conference. Now we'll go over here towards the top right. We have my main number block, and I have 5 phone numbers. These numbers all behave in the same way, right? So they're all going to the same location. They're all going to play the same main greeting. Down here, conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. But this is what that number that everyone dials to get to the conferences, whether they're your staff members, your clients, or your vendors. That's the number to start with. The fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. Right, so if people need to send you a fax, this would be the main or primary fax number for your account. Right, so then we have the company directory. This lets you download a CSV file that shows your staff members, right, for your users, right, their names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. Then we have the soft phone directory. Now this is for use specifically with the desktop version of the VirtualPBX soft phone. And what this does is you download this file, you upload it to your desktop VirtualPBX soft phone, so either on Mac OS or Windows, and you'll be able to see the status of the other soft phones on your account, right? So if everyone on your account is using the VirtualPBX soft phone, it's a good way to know who's on a call and who's not, right? So you know not to call them or what have you. Right. The store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then down here, we have the account realm. Each account has its own account realm. It's used for a couple of things. One, it's used for, or one of the things that's used for is for programming a third-party soft phone or device. Right? There's 3 pieces of information you would need. The realm is one of them. The other thing it's used for is for sending a fax out. Now, for Dash, for sending a fax out, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account. You just need to use the email address that's associated with your user. You would create an email like you normally do, right? So instead of sending an email to cousin Bob and having Bob's email address in the to field, you would have the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, a little @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. The system is not going to look at the subject line. It's not going to send anything from the body of the email, right? It looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. Again, it's PDF or TIFF. You can only include 1 attachment per email. If you try to include multiple, only one of them will go through, but you won't know which one for certain. The system doesn't delineate which one is sent. That also means if you have an email signature file attachment, you're going to want to make sure that's removed before you try to send a fax out. All right, up here we have the caller ID icon. We click on that, it expands it out, and this is your company caller ID. Now this first pull down unfortunately does not work properly here, but it lets you select any of the main numbers that were in the main number box there. So those 5 phone numbers, you can select any one of those. Then in the company caller ID name field, this is optional. This allows you to enter 15 characters, including spaces or special characters, that you want included as part of your outbound caller ID, right? So this phone number that you select and this, if any information you put here in the company caller ID name, your VoIP phones use those by default when they make an outbound call. Right. Next up, the system wants you to enter your company emergency information, or E911. Wants a North American address, and then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you included anything in the company caller ID name field, this information will get sent to the other carriers that support this feature. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their databases. And then when your VoIP phones make an outbound call, right, we send the phone number, but we also send the company caller ID name that you inputted. Couple things to know. One, when you make an outbound call, it's possible your call routes through a carrier that does not support the company caller ID name feature. If that's the case, that means that information does not reach the destination, right? The destination device that you're calling. Probably the most problematic thing about the CNAME feature, however, is when you're calling cell phones. The cell phone carriers do not participate in CNAME, or at least not for free. So like my carrier, for instance, wants to charge me $10 a month so that I can have company caller ID name information show up on the calls that come into my cell phone. Personally, I think I give my cell phone provider enough money as it is, so I chose not to add that feature to my account. That's probably pretty common for many people. So when you're calling cell phones, please be aware that your CNAME information is probably not going to make it through. The other thing to know about the CNAME or company caller ID name feature is it does not work with toll-free numbers. It will only work with local numbers. This is an aspect of toll-free numbers themselves. They were originally created as only an inbound service, so they never were designed to have CNAME information associated with them. Next up, we have the cold music box. So Dash allows you to upload your own media files. It will accept and play back .wav, .wav, and .mp3 files. You're going to want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Now for the hold music, this will be the default hold music for all your staff members. And what this means is call comes into your user, they press hold on their VoIP phone. Whatever media file you upload here is what will play. And you would click on this upload button here. Here's the box where you would name the file. This is how it would show up here on your Dash account. Right, so you can say hold music 1 or default hold music. Right, you would click on browse to find the MP3 or .wav file on your device, and then click the up arrow icon here to the right. And once it finishes uploading, click on Save Changes. Now hours is actually part of main number, so we'll just go to main number. So up the top, you have your main company numbers. You notice this little icon here to the right of the first main number that lets you know that there's multiple entries. And here you see all of the main numbers. If you decide you no longer want to have a number as one of your main numbers, you can click unassign next to it. You get the little green box here letting you know that it's happened, and now I only have the 4 main numbers. Now, I did not delete that phone number from my account. All I've done is made it a spare number. Down here, I have the option to add numbers back as main numbers. Now, add from spare, if I click on this, this will show me my spare numbers, so I can reuse a number, right? Oh, or I need to, move a number from my, like I had a number, say, that was directly on a user, and now I want to add it here as a main number instead. Right, so you click on the box in front of the number, click on add selected, and here it is. Right, by numbers lets you add new numbers to the account. When you click on this, you have 2 options, local and toll-free. Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click on search. It's going to give you a list of numbers. Now, the list of numbers that shows up, this is what is referred to as a dynamic list, meaning you're actually competing with other people in real time, right? So let's say I like this number here. I add it to my cart. Now, let's say suddenly my boss says, hey, we need you in a meeting now. So I have to drop everything, go into this meeting. If it's especially if it's a long meeting, right? I come back. If I click by numbers, it's possible that this number won't be there, right? Someone could have grabbed it while I was in my meeting or away at lunch, or even while I was talking right now. But in general, when you click by numbers, the system double checks, makes sure the number is still truly available, and then adds it to the account. For local numbers, it's a similar process, but you need to know the area code that you want a number in. You click search. Now, this message can come up with any area code, and that includes the toll-free prefixes, And that just means that this area code is exhausted. That means there's no readily available phone numbers in the 310 area code. 310 is in Los Angeles. So what you would want to do there is, or the easy thing to do, I would suggest Googling area code 310 in this case, and see if there's what's called an overlay area code. What that means is that there multiple area codes can have the same geographic boundaries, right? So I can go back to search, and if I Google 310, I will find that area code 424 is the overlay area code. And you see that there are plenty of numbers to choose from. And I can just click add next to one of them and click by numbers. And again, same process. The system checks to make sure it's available and then adds it to the account. Now, for big metropolitan areas, so like Los Angeles, right, there are many area codes in the area, so you can also look at nearby area codes if that will work for you. Now, if there's an area code you absolutely must have, you can email our porting team and ask us to do what's called a back order for that area code. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get a number right away. In fact, what that means when we place a back order for a phone number in an exhausted area code, that means we're saying, hey, if a phone number in this area code becomes available, we try to acquire it. Right? That doesn't mean we will, right? Because there could be other carriers out there competing for these numbers as we are. But if something becomes available and we're able to get it, then we grab it, we add it to your account, and we let you know. The problem is we have to wait for someone to give up a phone number. we have no way to let you know when that's going to happen because we have no idea how to predict when someone's going to give up a phone number. Oops. All right. Oh, we have a little gear icon here to the right of the numbers. Here you can update the caller ID, right? So each phone number you can have update the CNAM information. Plus, you can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, so that would show up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address associated with it. The reason for that, because this allows you then to assign your VoIP devices a specific phone number for E911 purposes, right? So that way, if you have remote staff, they can have a phone number for E911 only that has their specific address, right? So if they have to pick up their VoIP phone and dial 911, the correct address is sent to emergency services. Prepend, this one here, this is for your VoIP phone users. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their cell phone's displays. And basically it gives your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about, right? So like if I put promo, helps if I spell it right, click Save Changes. So now when anyone calls this 213 number, the word promo will show up as part of the caller ID information that shows up on their VoIP phones. So now they know, oh, someone's calling in on the promo number. So they're calling in about the specific promotion. All right. Next up, we have office hour strategy. You have 24-hour open office, right? Meaning you're open 24/7. Or custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day. Select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down at the bottom to say you're closed for lunch, right? That means everyone goes to lunch at the same time. Put a check mark if you want to do this, and then set your lunch hours in, again, that 24-hour or military time, and then click on Save Changes. Office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Then you look over to the right, you have the option to add holiday. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one creates a new row. So single day, like I have here for New Year's Eve, I give it a name, I choose the month and the date, Save Changes. Date range, like I have here for Christmas break, again, give it a name, start date, end date, Save Changes. Now, notice that there's no year indicator for these. So for the date range, as a precaution, we recommend to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And then lastly, advanced, I have like here for Thanksgiving, I gave it a name, I choose the month. This middle pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last to choose from, and then the day of the week, right? So the third Thursday in November. And then click on Save Changes after each one that you add or remove. And then we have incoming call handling. Now, this refers to my main numbers only, right? So these 4 or 5 phone numbers I have up here under main company numbers. And then I have these subtabs, open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. How do I want my system to handle calls on these main numbers? So first up, we have the virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click on. It's going to open up a big box. So first up, on the left, we have your main menu. This is what people can press on their phone to navigate through the phone system. Right down here, you click on Add Route. This creates a new row. Now this first pull down, you have 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action. All right, those are your options. And then here, the second pull down, I'll go up here where it actually works. You have several options. This is where those buttons are going, right? So one, I can say I can have it go to my smart PBX directory, right, the dial by name directory. I can have it go to a specific person, right, one of my users. I scroll further down, I can have it go to a call queue, which this one is already set up as, which is a call center feature, right? So you can have multiple calls come in, handled by multiple staff members. The inbound callers wait on hold until someone can pick up, right? Related to the queues are groups. Groups are departments you can have calls go to multiple staff members. However, it's not the routing options are very limited compared to queues. Right? Queues are an upgrade feature, whereas groups are an included feature. You can have calls go to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. The downside is if that phone isn't always manned or does not have a built-in voicemail, you're relying on the inbound caller to wait until someone picks up or they hang up. And then you have options to go to a voicemail box, right? So, press 1 to leave a voice message, right? And you also have a media file option where basically you can play a greeting, right? So like hours of operation or directions. Then over here to the right, we have your greetings, right? The greeting is where you say thank you for calling, but also it's where you give your inbound callers instructions, right? How to navigate through your phone system, right? That's how you would tell them, press 0 to get to the call queue, right? So our support team, right? Press 1 to speak to David, right? Press 2 to go to this other queue, which could be like your billing team, right? 3 to leave us a message, etc. In fact, I don't know. Right, so 4 would be to go to the directory, and 5 to speak to a salesperson. Now, you have these options here. So text-to-speech lets you type in a greeting, just like we have here. When you click Update, Save, and Save Changes, it saves it. Now, the text-to-speech greeting, limited to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces. I have been able to get a text-to-speech greeting to be like around 300 characters, but 250 has been consistent. It does have another limitation in that the system doesn't allow you to give it a name to the greeting, and it just creates one for you. And specifically, it creates it as, like in this case, it'd be main, right? Main, open hours, and then menu, TTS, right? Now, let's say you called in, listened to it, you're like, oh, I forgot menu option 3, right? So you come back here, you can retype, right? Just edit the existing greeting to add in menu option 3. You click Update, Save, and Save Changes. However, the system resaves the file, but now you'll have 2 files with main open hours menu TTS. And from any pull-down option, you won't be able to tell which one is which. So if you use text-to-speech greetings, which I would recommend if you're new to PBX systems, you're a startup, or you're just not sure, how you want things to route. If you use text-to-speech, after you create one, on the left, you want to click on the Greetings tab, which is just below Devices, and then find that main open hours menu TTS file and rename it, right? At least say main greeting 1. That way, from any pull down, you'll know which one is which. You can upload your own file. Now here, you can give it a name, and then you click on Choose File to find a .wav or .mp3 file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You then click Update and then Save and Save Changes. You can choose from an existing recording. Again, pull down here, and you see I have a main open hours menu TTS. I don't know if I have multiple or not. Unfortunately, the pull down for this does not work properly on the streaming software. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered on this account. What that means is pick up a VoIP phone. If you don't have a VoIP phone immediately available, you can still call in with like a cell phone or landline to record your main greeting over the phone. However, you need to go to your settings here, and where it says allow outside recording, turn this on. Right? By default, it's off as a security feature, right? So that way some random person can't call in and enter the PIN number randomly and able to like change your main greeting on you. Right? By turning this on, you can now call in with your cell phone, and since you're an admin, you can see the PIN number. So then you can call in. Now, if you just signed up and you first call into your phone number, you'll hear a message saying the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Right? The PIN number for your open hours is specific to only your open hours, so you can only use it during your open hours. And once you do so, the system will then walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. It will then save it and give it a rather random looking file name. The other thing to know is if you already have a greeting in place and then you call in to record it over the phone again, right? So what you do, you would call in, right? You'd hear the main greeting play. You can enter the PIN number. As long as it's the right time of day, the system will recognize it and then walk you through recording your greeting. However, you're overwriting the existing file that was there. Right? So if you called in during your open hours and you heard greeting A play, right? You enter the PIN number, you then record a new greeting. The file name greeting A stays the same, but the content you just completely overwrote. And that can be kind of an issue come holiday season. And then we have the professional recording services. When you click order, it will take you to I should open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. There you can order a new greeting with professional voice actors and actresses, right? They have different versions of English. They charge you separately, right? They're not affiliated with us directly. So they have their own billing. They email you the file, right? So then you can come back in here and just go up to upload your own file. All right, next under settings, we have number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? They can enter in an invalid option. So they have one option. They have one try built in, right? The initial one. The retries, when you have like one, that means they have two total attempts, right? The original attempt and then one mistry. Now the dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for additional button presses, right? So inbound caller calls in and let's say they press 7. Now that's not a valid menu option here, but the system will wait 5 seconds to see if they're going to enter additional digits as if they're going to enter in an extension number. After that 5 seconds, it's going to say, oh, they meant 7. So then I'll double check with the retry option. Right? If they still have an available retry, then the main greeting plays again. Let's the inbound caller make another entry. Now, let's say they hit 7 again, right? Still not a valid entry, even the second time around. Once they're out of entry retry options, right? The system will then either send them to the default action, right? In this case, right now, my smart PBX directory. Now, if I remove that, right, and it's their second attempt, then the system will say we did not recognize your entry and say goodbye and end the call. All right, so down here, allow dialing extensions. By default, that is on, right? And that just means if someone enters an extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension number. If I turn this off, that means my inbound callers can only press the menu options. They enter an extension number, it counts as an invalid attempt. And then lastly, down here, I have the suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if I don't want the system to tell the inbound caller that we didn't recognize the entry and goodbye, I turn that on. Right? That suppress means to turn off that message. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you click Save here. It'll take you back to your incoming call handling, and then you click Save Changes here. Right? You need to click Save twice. Now, the second option here, call comes in, and the idea is you're offering it to like a user or a group or a queue, right? It's a live operator answer option. So you're trying to offer to call a staff member first or multiple staff members. If they're not able to pick up, then you send the caller to the virtual receptionist. Now, I'm still on my open hours, so it's that virtual receptionist we were just looking at. But if we change this here to my lunch hours, and I click on this, right? Different menu, right? I likely have a different greeting saying, hey, we're closed for lunch, etc. Third option here, this pull down, you can, again, typically people select a user, a group, a queue, possibly a media file, or a device, right? It's basically something to answer. Or if you don't even want to bother with that, the last option here is you can just send them straight to a voicemail box. And the second pull down is choose the voicemail box you want the call to go to. Now, this fourth option, this only shows up in a couple of circumstances. One is if we, like our services team had a advanced call flow created for you, right? So you had some kind of special routing that you need done or advanced configuration. Or if your account has multiple auto attendants and you made one of those attendants available in main menu, that's when this fourth option happens. Now, if you don't have either of those, this option doesn't even show up, right? You'd only have these three. All right. Main conference number, you can have multiple, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. You also have the option here for a custom greeting. When you click enable, this is text to speech. So 250 characters, not counting spaces. You would click save. All right, so but that's basically it. Now, even if I did not, let's say if I go back here and I put this back to disabled, whenever you call your conference number, the system still says welcome to the conference and then prompts you to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, again, you can only have the one main fax box number, so that's why I don't have the option to add or buy new. And then you have the option here to edit the fax box. Now, the inbound notification email, you just enter in an email address, and this email address gets an email every time a fax comes through. Right? They'll have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment. Now, if someone calls your main fax box number, say from their cell phone, right, they hear fax tones and hang up, this email address still gets an email letting you know that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, you can check the call logs, right? You have the email notification. So, like if the part of the email notification says wireless number, right, you know that was someone misdialed. You don't have to worry about it. If it doesn't say that, right, you check the call logs. In the call logs, if you see a call to your fax box number and it's under 45 seconds, they hung up, most likely, right? It takes about 45 seconds to transmit one page via fax on average. Now, if you recognize the number in the call log, right, as someone that you normally get faxes from, then you'd want to contact that person or organization and find out if they had any kind of issues on their side or their fax machine gave some sort of error message. The email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. This is designed to put in your company domain, so that way anyone at your company can then fax out via your Dash account without actually having to be a user on the Dash account, right, since they only have to create an email. All right, auto attendance. This is actually a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not others. This allows you to create secondary attendants. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One would be if you want to make use of sub-menuing, like one for English, two for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish attendant with greetings in the appropriate language, and the menu options would go to staff members who speak the appropriate language. The other reason would be for creating standalone attendants, as if you, let's say, for instance, you have multiple businesses. You want these multiple businesses on the same account, so that way you're not paying, having multiple transactions with us for billing purposes. Right, so each of your businesses would have their own main numbers, their own main greetings, right? They'd be different from each other, but you can have the same staff people take calls from these multiple businesses. So up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant, right? You give it a name and an extension number, and you click on Create Attendant. The extension number is not something your customers would know, but it allows your staff members to transfer calls to another auto attendant, right? If someone dialed the wrong business, or they happen, your customers happen to know, oh, these businesses are related. Can you send me to, the cleaning business, etc. Now, once a attendant is created, if you click on the name, it defaults to being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? You can click on that. It flips it to say available in main menu, meaning now it's a sub-menu option, right? And you leave it like this because it's a standalone, so it's a separate business. Now, your auto attendants can have their own phone number or multiple, right? Because you can always add from spare, buy new, even though I already have one here. you have a little gear icon here, so you can update the E911 and caller ID. Right. They can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. Now, if you want to change an extension number, either on a user or group or an auto attendant, I recommend adding the new extension number first. Right. Then click on Save Changes. Weird. I'm not sure why that's happening. I'll have to look into that. But then, so you add the new extension number, right? You click Save Changes. You click on the extension number box again, click Unassign next to the original extension, and then click Save Changes. So now it has a new extension number. And then we have the little wrench icon here under Settings. Now, your auto attendants, they only have the option to go to the virtual receptionist. Assuming this loads at some point. There we go, right? So calls come in and go to the virtual receptionist. They don't get the other routing options. You notice here I have lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This will match what we set up under the main number, right? So your secondary attendants need to have the same hours of operation and holidays as your main number. If for some reason you need, like let's say you have a 24/7 business versus a Monday to Friday 9 to 5, you'd want to talk to our account services team. They can go over your options, whether it's possible to keep them both on the same account, or if it makes more sense to have two separate accounts. All right, next up, we have devices. Shows all your devices on the account. Black devices means you turned it off on your dashboard here. Red means it's unregistered, meaning like for the case of a web phone or soft phone, that could be they're simply not logged into the device. Right? For a physical phone, like I have here for the Cisco, right? That could be it's not plugged in. For all three, it could also be that they're having a network problem, right? So they need to adjust their network settings, or their internet provider is having a problem. Excuse me. Green device means we can send a call to it, right? Registered, or in case of cell phone or landlines, that, hey, we can just send calls to it. Now, up here at the top, you can click Add Device. First up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical device that's on someone's desk. Choose the manufacturer that you want to work with. Now, some have a lot of models, and some only have a few. Right, so find the make and model of the device you're working with, click on it, give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone or break room phone. And then we need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device, usually a sticker on the back of the device, or if it's plugged in, check on the, like there should be like a status or basic settings, and it should come up under one of those, and enter the information here. Then you would click on Create Device. And after you do that, the only other thing you would need to do is go to your Users tab here and assign that device to a user. Now, within our dashboard, that's pretty much it. The only other thing you would need to do is click on the little wrench icon here, go to Advanced and select Miscellaneous, and click on Unlock. Right now, you then need to access that phone's web user interface, right? Web UI. Typically, that's done by getting the IP address from the phone, entering that IP address into a browser on your computer. That computer needs to be on the same network as that phone. But then you'll get a login page. Typically, it's like admin to log in. And you need to go to the auto provision section of that phone and enter an URL, basically telling the phone, hey, go here, get your config file. For the specifics of these various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages and look for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots from these various manufacturers, so you know where to look and where to go. It will have the proper format for that URL, right? Because it's slightly different for each of the manufacturers. And in some cases, there'll be some settings to double check as well. But then the phone should get its config file. It should reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device. Adding a cell phone or landline, pretty easy. You give it a name, and then you put in the number. Now, it should be +1 area code and phone number. So I'm going to bring up the demo device here. So you see I gave it a name, +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses, just +1 area code and number. If I go over here on advanced options, this is the default configuration for a cell phone or a landline. Now, I want to explain how it works when the system sends a call to a cell phone or a landline. Right? So call comes into the system, we're routing it to your cell phone. Your cell phone will ring and you pick up. When you pick up, you're going to hear a message from the system saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. Right? It then connects you, you can speak to the person. Now, that doesn't work in every situation. For example, let's say you have contracted with an after hours answering service, right? And it's an automated system and they're not able to, press 1, right? Because it's basically a computer answering the call. So in that instance, right, these default settings aren't going to work because, again, that automated answering service does not know how or when to press 1. So what you would want to do is come here to your devices page, click on their little wrench icon and go to advanced. And where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline's voicemail, click on the box in front of this and click on save changes. So now what happens when we send a call to this phone number, right? It rings and the automated answering service picks up, right? So we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. There's no message about this is a forwarded call. There's no request to press 1. We just simply connect the call. Now, if this was really your cell phone number, you could still change this setting here, right? In which case, right, when you pick up, you're talking to the customer. Now, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, again, that's a pickup tone. So we send the caller to, say, your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing to be aware of is when, let's say, customer Mary is calling you, right? Gets to your cell phone, it rings, you see a phone number, right? You see on your cell phone's display. It's customer Mary's phone number, and you don't recognize it, right? And these days, you probably have been getting either lots of robodialers about extending your auto warranty, or you might be getting hit with a lot of political calls since we're in the United States, we're in an election cycle. And so you're like, I don't recognize the number, you can go to voicemail. Right? Customer Mary leaves a message, maybe you're able to, connect with her and complete the transaction, or maybe she's moved on to one of your competitors. What you could do is, again, come back to your devices page here under advanced and uncheck this one here, keep original caller ID. So now when customer Mary calls you, instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up on your display, it'd be your main company number. Go back to your dashboard real quick here. Right, this number that you selected up here for your caller ID, that's the phone number that shows up on your cell phone's display. So hopefully you'd recognize the number as your company number. You're like, oh, this is a business call, let me take it. Soft phone. Now on the devices page, when you add a soft phone here, you get the warning message automatically, no matter where you add a soft phone. But here it adds, or it's just defaulting to adding a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using a cell phone application other than ours, right? So you're using like Bria from Counterpath. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you need to add a soft phone device directly on the user's page, not here on the devices page. Also, the web phone. To me, there's no point in adding the web phone here on the devices page because the web phone, you have to log in to the web phone page and it uses your dash login credentials. So that means you want to add the web phone directly to a user as well, right? So it's automatically tied to somebody. And we'll cover that a little bit more when we get to the users page. Now, as well as the unlocking of a VoIP phone. Under advanced, you can go to audio. For physical phones, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are the selected codecs. For the web phone or the VirtualPBX soft phone, under advanced, under audio, you want to make sure that Opus is selected. So I can move these over, for example. Right, Opus has a smaller packet size, so it's better for especially the soft phone. It's just because on the soft phone you can potentially use that on your cell phone, and you might have lower bandwidth available to you. All right, greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account. So your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, any hold music files, right? They're all here. Now, up here at the top, you can click add, so you can upload a new file, right? You name the file, you click on browse to find a .wav or .mp3 file. You click on create greeting, it will then upload it here. It doesn't assign it here, it just lets you know where it is, right? Or that it's available. Now, in terms of the layout here, you have the name of the file, the source, upload, right? You uploaded the file. TTS means it's a text-to-speech greeting, and then recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here for play, this allows you to play back the greeting so you can listen to it directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, then to the right here, you've got the download icon, so you can just download it to your device and then hopefully listen to it there. Generally speaking, it downloads as MP3s. And then you got the little wrench icon here. When you click on it, this is where you would change the name. It's something you would be more easily recognizable. Or you can click on delete if you know it's no longer needed. Groups, sometimes referred to as hunt groups or ring groups, right? Basically a group of people, usually a department. Up here towards the top, you click on add group. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members to the right that you want to be part of the group. And then you click on create a group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. Right? You can always change the name at any time. Not a big deal. And then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer the call to the members of the group. Got little arrows here to the right, so you can increase it or decrease it. Right? You also have the option here to delete a group. Right? Any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Then you've got the members box. When you click on this, it expands it out. And you see all your members who are assigned to this group. Now, this setup here is what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? So it's ringing everybody for the same amount of time, start to finish. Now, if Bob picks up the call, right, then everyone else's phones stop ringing. Some things to know about calls to a ring group, right? It's gonna ring, like, so let's say Bob has multiple devices, right? He's got a soft phone, a web phone, and his cell phone. Call from the group is going to ring all three of them at the same time. Right? There's a user feature that's called Follow Me that allows you as an admin to set up like, oh, ring the soft phone first, then the web phone, then the cell phone, right? Each for like, say, 20 seconds, right? But calls from the group will ignore that feature completely. Just rings them all at the same time. In groups, you can answer calls with cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. System does not care. One thing to keep in mind about answering calls with a cell phone or landline, you're not able to transfer those calls. Right? That's the endpoint. So if that inbound caller needs to speak to someone else in your organization and they end up speaking to someone on a cell phone or landline, they're going to need to call back. Versus a VoIP phone, whether that's a cell phone or a web phone or a physical phone, right? Your staff member can transfer them. Now, along the top here, you've got timestamps. This last one you can edit. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, 2 minutes. Now, you also have this big distribute button. If you click on that, now its calls will always ring in this order. So it rings Bob first, then Aaron, then Peter, etc. Every time. right? So Bob always gets the rung first, even if he's already on a call from a group, right? So let's say, call number one comes into group, Bob answers. He's helping the customer. Not even 30 seconds later, second call comes in the group. It's going to still attempt to ring Bob first, right? Until the timer says, in this case, 48 seconds, right? Then it would go to Aaron, right? So if you have a busy group, right, or like you're hitting your busy season, for example, you probably would not want this kind of ring order. You probably would want the ring all, or at least, something like this, where you have more overlap, so that way calls can get to the next person. Now, if let's say you don't have a busy season, let's say you're just always busy, then you could do ring all, right? Or you might want to look at an ACD queue where people can wait on hold. The other thing to know is if your staff members' devices has call waiting enabled, right? So let's say Bob is on a call from the group, he's helping someone, second call comes in, he'll hear the call waiting beep on his phone if he has that enabled on the phone itself, right? If he disables that feature, then he won't hear it. Now, if you want to change, let's say you went with this order, but let's say Bob has a special project, so you don't want Bob getting the call first. You can click and drag and move him to the bottom, right? We can move Michael to the top. Now, I haven't changed the order yet, right? Because Bob is still at 0 seconds, which is the first person. But I can click distribute again, and now Michael's first. Right? You can click remove to remove someone from the group. Down here, you can add members. All right, you can just click on who you want to add, click selected, and then I'd want to click distribute again. And you see here it equalized the timeout. So now they're down to 40 seconds. Right. Any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Groups can have extension numbers. Right. You actually have to have one extension number, but you can have multiple if you want. Groups can also have phone numbers if you want them to. Now, this phone number is not a main number or auto attendant number. That means it does not have hours of operations or holidays. So this means this number is available 24/7. So something to be aware of, especially if you have staff members who have their personal cell phones on their users, because that means they can get calls from this phone number at any time of night or day. Groups have features. And we'll click on that. First up is ring back. So when a call comes into a group, right, gets offered to your staff members. When their phones start to ring, that ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller. Ring back. If you don't want that ringing sound to be piped back to the caller, you can instead enable ring back and upload a media file, right? .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You then click upload, or you can use a pull down to use an existing file, and then click on Save Changes. Now, if for some odd reason, let's say you have that distribution going, right? So it rings Bob first. If Bob's phones don't actually give us that ring sound, right? Let's say he only has one device and it's ringing busy, right? Well, that's not ring back, right? That's not a ringing sound coming back to us. So the system won't play the media file. Instead, your inbound caller hears nothing until after 40 seconds when it gets to the next user. That does not happen very often, but it's something to be aware of. All right. Next action. To me, this is the most important feature of the groups. And when you enable it, it's what do you want to do with the call if no one answers, right? So let's say I had 2 group call attempts, right? Offers it through to everybody twice. No one picked up. Maybe because they're all busy and on calls. This pull down is you send it to where you want, right? Usually a voicemail box, but you can send it to another group. You can send it to a queue. You can send it back to your main number. You can send it to a specific user, etc. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding on their device, right? Saying, hey, I'm not going to be at my desk phone, send calls to my cell phone. Now, if the user has multiple devices and one of those devices is their cell phone, you don't really need the allow call forward enabled. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers. that shows up in front of the caller ID of the inbound caller on their VoIP phones. Just like prepend on the phone numbers, but specific to the groups. All right, numbers. This will start off with your numbers in use. Basically, it shows your list of phone numbers and where they are or where they're assigned. Excuse me. Now, this does not allow you to assign or unassigned numbers. It's just letting you know where to look for them. You can click on the little gear icon here so you can update the caller ID or E911, etc. for any of your phone numbers. Under the spare numbers tab, this shows your numbers that you're not using. Now, and this allows you to remove those numbers from your account. Right? Now, keep an eye up here. And once you click on the check mark in front of a couple of numbers, now you have a new option up here for delete. You click there, confirms the deletion. And now this says the system has removed those two numbers. So now I have 2 less phone numbers on my account. So I'm not paying an overage for my phone numbers, or slightly less overage. Right? You can always buy local toll-free numbers and add them directly to your spare number list if you want to. Again, that's if like you're expanding to a new market. Port, this allows you to move a phone number from another carrier to your VirtualPBX account. Right, so let's say you're moving it from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You just click on New Port Request, give it a name, you select local or toll-free, and then the system's asking you to upload a recent copy of your bill in a PDF format. And then you click on the box here to say that yes, it's within 30 days. It's then going to ask you about the numbers you want to port. It's going to ask you for your address that's associated with those phone numbers, and that should match what your current carrier has on file for you. It's going to ask you for the account number and the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're only porting one phone number, then that phone number is, the BTN is the phone number you're porting. If you're porting multiple numbers, you may want to talk to your existing carrier to find out what the BTN is. Then the system will ask you to, or let you download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA. Now, the LOA is going to ask you for things like your company address and name. Again, that should match what your current carrier has on file for you. And in the case of, especially if you're going to do multiple numbers, you'd probably want to check with your current carrier on what the information should be. It's possible that if you have multiple numbers, that there could be different sets of information for those numbers. The LOA does need to be signed, right? Not printed or typed out for at least the signature field. If you're porting a mobile phone number, right, cell phone number, please be aware that you will need to get an account PIN number from your current carrier in order to port. And that once that number ports to us, the cell phone number the cell phone that's associated with that number will stop working until you get a new number from your wireless carrier. All right, let's go ahead and close that. Now, toll-free numbers typically average 3 to 5 business days to complete, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, our porting team will double check to make sure there was not a typo. Or like in the case of an address, if let's say your LOA has one address and your bill copy has a separate address, we'll try both addresses. Right? But if that all fails, then we'll let you know, hey, we got a rejection for this particular reason. We are not always given specifics about the rejection. Like we get address mismatch. We're not always told that, oh, the street number was wrong or the zip code was wrong. They'll just say address mismatch. At that point, we've double checked for make sure it wasn't a typo. If there's an alternate address, we tried with that already. Then you need to talk to your carrier that already has the number saying, what information do I need to port the number out? All right, users. This shows all the users on your account. Little gray person icon is your standard users, right? So they don't have a lot of access. The little blue suit icon people, these are your system admins, meaning they can do all the stuff we're talking about today. Up at the top, you click on add user and you fill out the form, right? First name, last name. Hopefully you know your staff members' names. The email address used for login. This must be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address for multiple staff members. Then you create a password for them, and then you enter an extension number for them. Now, if you started off, like this system started off with extension 1000, so the system is saying the next available extension number is 1017. I don't have to do that, right? I can change it out to whatever I want it to be. Now, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, you create a user, you add a VoIP phone to them, and you get it registered, right? The user can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98. That will automatically log them into this voicemail box that was created with the user at the same time. The system will then prompt the user to create a PIN number for the voicemail box and then walk them through creating a voicemail greeting. Right, so basically their voicemail box is all set up right off the get-go. Next, you have the option to include in the user directory. Right, you can change your mind if you don't want at any time later. Then we've got to send emails to an alternate address. So by default, if the system needs to send an email to a user, it uses the email address used for login, right? So for like password recovery or for voicemail notifications. If you want those emails to go to a different email address instead, then you would put the check mark here under send emails to an alternate address, and then in the box, enter in that different email address. Like so. And then here we've got send credentials to the user, which I think is very important, right? When you click on this and then you click on create user, the system generates an email to that user right away, right? Sends an email saying, hey, welcome to Dash. Here's your username, your password, and your account information. And, you know, just now you don't have to, right? If you don't want them to have that email, but if they ever need to log in, they're going to need to do password recovery or they're going to bug you. Create user, just if you need to create one, create user and add another if you're adding multiple people. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, kind of like we did in groups. Right? You can change their name. Here's where you would change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address or their password. You could also have the system send them the password reset email. Here's where you would change their voicemail box PIN number, at least temporarily. Here's the option to send to alternate address. Here's the user directory option. Over here on the right, this first pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This pull down is the time zone, right? So the person can have their voicemail timestamps be correct for them. The little flag icon here, pull down, that's for the display language, English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout. The default here is 20 seconds. That is plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. If this user is only using a cell phone, you would want to increase the ringing timeout to 30 seconds, possibly even up to 45. Right. In terms of how telecom works, right? Call goes to a landline, right? Call goes to the landline telecom. They go, oh, it's right here. Right? They just send the call straight through because they know exactly where that phone is. Right? Call goes to a cell phone telecom. Cell phone telecom goes, hold on a second, we need to find them. Right? Ping cell phone towers, they find you, then they send that call through. Right? That delay, right? That time to find you is why you would need a longer ringing timeout on a PBX system for when calls go to a cell phone. Extension box, you can have multiple extensions on a user if you want to. Most of the time there isn't a need. Phone numbers, users can have their own phone numbers, right? You can add from spare or buy new. Just like in groups, this phone number does not have hours of operation, so it's available 24/7. And check here. So here under the devices box, right, you have the same options. I'm going to the soft phone. So typically, oops, oh, that must be. There we go. So by default, it starts you off on a third-party soft phone. Now, down here, you see where it says use third-party application. You can click on that. It'll flip it to say use VirtualPBX application. Then you just need to give it a name, and then you click on create device. And this box will disappear. And then you click on save changes. When you click on save changes, the system will then send the user an email with the login information they need for the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as download links to get the app if they don't already have it. Right, this is the only way to add the VirtualPBX soft phone to the system. Right, so that's created properly. If you try to add it on the devices page, it will not work. Mostly because you don't have that little toggle option. Likewise, it's best to add the web phone directly here to a user, because once you give it a name and then click on create device and save changes, right, it automatically has a user it's associated with, so they can just log in to webphone.virtualpbx.net. Users can have user features. Now, caller ID number, that only works on a user with their own phone number. And when you turn it on, you select a phone number on the user. That phone number becomes their outbound caller ID. Right, so they pick up their VoIP phone, they make an outbound call. This phone number would show up as, I believe this is Bob, would be show up for Bob's outbound calls instead of the main company number. Right, that's that under the dashboard company caller ID. Virtual text, this is a newer feature. It should be available on all new plans. If you're an existing customer that's been with us for a while, in fact, if you've before, I believe it's March of this year, and you want this feature, you'd want to talk to our account services team. But you turn this on, and then you select a phone number for the user, whether it's a phone number directly associated with the user or one of your main numbers or auto attendant numbers. And then you click on Save Changes. The user gets an email with welcoming them to virtualtext.app, right, app. It has its own login, right? So it's potential that you can have a user with a dash login, a virtual text login, and a soft phone login, right? All three of them being different. But then they can text from whatever number you associated with. The virtual text feature allows you to share numbers among multiple staff members. So that way you have, multiple people can interact with your customers via text, right? Or keep an eye on the main number. Right, voicemail box, right? This would be on because you created the voicemail box with the user. Now, transcription is technically a plan-specific feature, and all it is the system listens to the voicemail message and tries to type it out, what it hears to the best of its ability in the email notification, right? Now, by default, the system attaches the voicemail message as an MP3 to the email notification, right? That's what this check mark here is for, right? So if you have transcription on your plan and then you enable it, right, the system listens to the message and types it out in the body of the email that this is sent to you. But you always have that MP3 you can double click on and listen to the file. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and cannot accept any more. Now, you have the option here, which just above where it says the attached messages, this one here, delete message after notifications are sent. So what happens is, caller leaves a voicemail, system emails you that voicemail email notification with the attachment. And then if you delete after notification, then the system removes that message from the voicemail box. So this would prevent a voicemail box from getting full. The limitation, however, is that your user can only ever check their voicemails via their email messages. If for some reason they're not getting those emails, right, then they're potentially losing those voicemail messages. Right? If you leave this unchecked, your staff members have more versatility into how they check their voicemails. Number one, they can call into the system and listen to their voicemail messages over the phone, and they'll have the option to delete them after they're done. But they can also access their voicemail messages via the user portal, which every user has access to through the dashboard. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. And once it loads, you see here. So when you first enable it, it looks like this, right? And basically the system says what devices you want to use, right? When you uncheck a device, it actually looks like that. So now it says, well, how long do you want it to ring, right? So you click and drag this out. Now, if you uncheck all three, oops, right, you can click distribute, right? Just like in groups, right? You can click and drag the order around. This is your ringing timeout, 120 seconds. You can change that how you see fit. So, for instance, and do something like that. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, again, just remember, calls from the group ignore this feature. Ring them all. Fax box, you can choose to have your users have their own fax boxes if you want them to. You click Enable, and then you have to decide, are you assigning a phone number to them, right? Either buying new or adding spare, or are you just going to assign a new extension number specific to the fax box? If you assign the extension number, you limit this person to only ever being able to receive a fax. They will not be able to send out. Right? And that is because when they try to send out, the system uses their fax box settings to send out, and it tries to use the extension number as the outbound caller ID. Extension numbers are simply not long enough, and so that call will fail. So in that regard, I tend to recommend making use of either buying a new number or using a spare number. So that way your staff member has the versatility of being able to send and receive faxes. All right, Conference Bridge. As an admin, all you need to do is click Enable and then enter in a PIN number and click on Save Changes. The enable video conferencing, that's for your Dash users, right? So anyone outside your organization will not be able to make use of video conferencing. It's internal use only. Call forwarding. Now, your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. They can do that via the user portal, or they can do it directly from their VoIP phones using a feature code. Failover mode is something you would have to set up for them. And failover mode is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes into their user, if you have failover mode enabled, the system will automatically forward the call to the phone number you designated, right? So you would click on failover mode here, you would enter in, you'd select desk phone or mobile, it doesn't really matter. And then in the number field here, you put +1 area code and phone number, no dashes, spaces, or parentheses. And then you click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this, right? You need to tell the system what kind of calls you want it to record. So the inbound internal, right? That would be coworker Michael called Bob, right? So that means that call would be recorded, right? Inbound external means customer Mary called Bob. So I could choose to say, I want that one recorded, right? Outbound external means Bob here called coworker Aaron. It's like, oh, that's not necessary. And then outbound external means Bob called customer Mary. And then click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that amount, you get a per gigabyte storage fee, right? So we don't cut you off or like cut a recording halfway through because you hit your 2 gigabyte limit, for instance. Now, for specifics on your account, if you just signed up, check the pricing page. It will have that information there. Otherwise, I would say you would need to talk to our account services team. They can verify how much storage your account has and what the overage is if you go over. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you may want to look at AWS, right? So on Dash, we have what's called AWS integration. So that will allow you to link Dash to an AWS account, right? Amazon Web Services. So then you can have AWS store your call recordings versus with us, which is typically going to be cheaper if you have heavy call volume. Again, you'd want to talk to our account services team about that because it's not available. It might require a change in plan. Excuse me. Okay. Not sure what happened there. Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want them. .mp3, .wave, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. So like for instance, you want your sales staff to have one voicemail or one hold music message while your support staff has a different hold music message. Do not disturb means that this person is not taking calls. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. When you enable it, you enter a hot desk ID. I usually say just match it to their extension number, for example, and then click on Save Changes. This is for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. Essentially, let's say Bob comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone there and hits *11. Right, that turns on hot desking. The system asks him for his hot desk ID. He enters that, and then calls will then be sent to that phone that he's sitting at for the rest of his day, right? Then at the end of his shift, he picks up the phone, hits *12, and that turns off hot desking. The next time he comes in the office, right? So let's say Angela's sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning. He moves over to sit at desk number 11. Again, picks up the handset, hits *11, enters his hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 11. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has an entry in this third column, that means that was the user created voicemail box, right? Created at the same time you created the user. Up here at the top, you can add a new voicemail box, for instance, for use with your ring groups or your queues, or like you just wanted a general voicemail box that's not associated with a particular person. You give it a name, right? You give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number. And then you click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, right, you can always click on this to get that information. So if you need to call into that voicemail box to listen to its messages or change its greeting, you have that information there. But then you go to Advanced, Greeting Media, or sorry, Recipients. Why did I click on Recipients? Should be on Greeting Media. Here we go. So Greeting Media, you've got two options, Media and Temporary. Media is the normal file that you want playing, right? .mp3, .wave, recorded in mono. Again, you can use the pull down to select any media file you already have on the account, or you can click upload to upload a new one. The temporary file, that's for your vacation or out of office message, right? So if you have something selected under temporary, that will play, right? It will ignore the media file that's selected until you put temporary back to none, in which case then the media file will play. right? Then recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have one built-in recipient, right? Any voicemail box you create manually here, you'd want to add a recipient to them or to that voicemail box. So that way someone is notified when that a voicemail is left on that particular message. You can add multiple, right? You would click on add new recipient and enter the email address. If you don't need to add one, you click on save changes, but you can keep clicking add to add more email addresses. And then options. So once you have a media file and a recipient in place, you can click on already set up. Right here are your options. Do you allow, or do you want the email? Do you want the system to attach a message or the MP3 file to the email notification? Excuse me. And then here's the option to delete after notification, so that voicemail box doesn't become full. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. This allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or landline and log in, and then make an outbound call through your system. That way, when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up on the outbound caller ID, it's your company number. Now, this feature is not enabled on new accounts on sign up. This is something you have to request from our account services team. But once you do that, you come here and you click enable. And by default, right, the system will create a PIN number for this feature right off the bat. Now, if you leave it just like this, that means you have to create DISA as a menu option, right? It becomes an advanced call flow. Now, if you click edit here, right, you can change the PIN number, but you can click add extension. And I would say make it an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. So I started with extension 1000 on this system, and I just make a random extension number. So now I can call into my main number, right? That goes to my virtual receptionist or one of my auto attendant numbers. I enter in this random extension number that I created. The system will then prompt me for this PIN number, and then I'll hear dial tone. Then I just enter area code and phone number I want to reach out to, and I make an outbound call. Now, the reason this feature is not enabled right off the bat is because if someone figures it out, they can make outbound calls on your account and you wouldn't know about it right away. In fact, most people wouldn't know about it until their next invoice, and they wondered why they have so much call volume. One way you might be able to find that out, though, ahead of time is via your call logs. Call your call logs you've got today, which I have no calls on this system here for this week, right? Only a couple. I can go back to this month and see a bit longer. Now, the little yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. If I click on it, I see here that Josh used a particular VoIP phone to make an outbound call, right? So that's a legit call. All right, green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call into the system. See if we can find one that's a little bit longer. Yeah, so here you see call came in and was offered to these specific devices. Now, there's a little fire hydrant icon here. When you click on this, this creates an email for you, and it's already addressed to support at virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. I would recommend strongly that in that email, you write the context or why you're sending this email to the support team. Right? They're not going to be able to know that, oh, you had an audio issue or your phone didn't ring. They're just going to see you're sending us a call and here's some technical information. Now, in general, you want to see things like normal clearing. That means the call ended normally. Right? Originator cancel, that tells you the inbound caller hung up before this device had a chance to be answered. Now, under custom, you can select your date range, right? All of these tabs, you also have the option to download. It downloads a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can probably gain some more information or insight about your call history. that's going on. If you need your call log information for compliance reasons, I would recommend you do so every month. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. After that, we would need to create an escalation with our engineering team. They can go back up to 18 months, so 6 more months. But after that, the data is not available any longer. Right. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. These are a way for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. Now, this information is a page on our website, and you can also, under our support pages, find all the phone commands cheat sheet, which has a little bit of information about how to use these particular feature codes. Also on this page, if you mouse over the little question mark icon, it gives you a little bit of context on how to use these feature codes. Okay, that's the dashboard. So next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so they're not allowed to call you. Right, you start by clicking Edit Blacklists over here on the right, and then on the left, you click Add to create a new list. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right, you need to give it a name. And then you have to choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, anonymous just means we're not getting a valid inbound caller ID. Right, so if you turn this on and a call comes in and it does not have valid caller ID, they're blocked. They get busy tone. Right, if you leave it off, that means they could come through. Beyond that, you click on Add Number, and then you add the number that you're blocking. Right, +1, area code and phone number, no parentheses, dashes, or spaces. And keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, then you would click on Save. Then you will click on Back to Settings, and then you make sure that list is over here on the right under Selected. Right, so you might have to click and drag it over, and then you click Update. And so now any phone number on these 3 lists, if they try to call any of my company numbers, right, they get busy tone. Right, faxes, also an included feature. This is your fax manager. This allows you to get to any fax box on your account. So you can see the faxes that have come in. In this, I'm on the inbound faxes. So I see the date and the time, the phone number that it came from, phone number it came to, the number of pages, I can download the file, etc. Outbound faxes, again, select the fax box. Right, success, that's good. Right, I see the date, the time, phone numbers involved, pages, I can download it. Failed. Now, if you see a failed attempts, that means we had a problem communicating with the phone number, right, or the fax number that we're sending it to. Right, so you'd want to verify that this is a legit fax number, for example. You can click on this last icon here, and sometimes the system will have additional information. Normally, though, at least these days, it just says, where is that? Yeah, sometimes it'll tell you things like user busy, but most of the time it just says status failed, right? So that doesn't really help you that much because you already see that it failed. Now, the email to fax logs, this shows where the system had a problem with the request, right? So we didn't even try dialing the number, right? So you see the email addresses involved, right? So you can say, oh, this might be from the wrong domain. You see the format of the email address that they sent to. All right, you see the date, the time, little eyeball icon, you can click on that and you say, oh, no valid attachment. Now, no valid attachment means they may not have included an attachment at all, or they could have tried to include something other than a PDF or TIFF. Right? Sometimes you'll see like invalid user, meaning someone like used their personal email address, things of that nature. All right, number manager, this takes you back to your spare number page. Reports, this would actually open a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So available on some plans and not others. And this allows you to create your own reports. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you this on the streaming software. However, under our YouTube channel, under videos, do a search for advanced reporting demo, and that will show you some of the things you can do. And then if you're interested in that and it's not available on your plan, then you'd want to talk to our account services team. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail manager, so you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And you can see the messages, right? So you can see the new messages, you can see the date and the time, phone numbers involved. You can play back the message, you can download the message. As an admin, right, if you click on the box in front of it, you can move a message to a different voicemail box, right, as well as change its status. Right, over here we have ACD queues. ACD stands for automatic call distribution. This is a call center feature. Basically, it allows like inbound callers to wait on hold until there's an available agent. Now, there are two kinds of queues currently available. The one I'm showing here are the standard ACD queues. We also have ACD queues Pro. Unfortunately, accounts can only have one or the other, so I can only show you the one. However, on our YouTube channel, we have an ACD queues Pro demo as well, so you can take a look at that so you can see the differences. Creating a queue, right? You would click on Add New Queue. I'm just gonna click on the existing queue here. So you give it a name, and then you choose either an extension number or a phone number. Now, queue can still be a menu option, right? So people can still, press a menu option to get to a queue. Then you have the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down doesn't work properly, but round robin equalizes out over time among your staff members. Right? You have most idle, which means whoever's been waiting the longest for the call gets the next call that comes in. Least calls is the least amount of connected calls, right? So if Mary has spoken to 5 customers and Bob has spoken to 2, under least calls, Bob gets the next call that comes in, right? And then there's least offers, which is a combination of missed and connected calls, right? So let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5. Under least offers, Mary gets the next call, right, until she equals Bob. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. For the queues, you can upload a 5 megabyte file. ACD Queues Pro, you can have different media files play, right? You can have like one media file 1 play, and then switch to a second media file. You can also announce like the position in line that the inbound caller is in, as well as like their expected wait time, or like how far back they are in line. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time your inbound caller can wait on hold. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. When you have it 0, that means there's no limit. If I say 4, for example, that means 4 people can wait on hold. That's on top of whoever's already speaking to my staff members. Now, timeout immediately if empty, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat that inbound caller as if they've already hit the queue timeout setting. Excuse me. Now, the escalation call flow after timeout, select the pull down here, and basically you're saying, hey, after they've reached the queue timeout limit, where do you want to send the call? Right? So like voicemail box, another queue, main menu, particular user, a group, etc. The 0 out call flow, if you select something here, that means you're enabling the ability for that inbound call to press 0. And when you do so, then you need, select where they're going. Now, if you have this set up like this, there's nothing to tell the caller they can do so. They either have to just press it on their own, or you would have to have that message in as part of your hold music. The agent behavior section, so agent recovery time measured in seconds is how much time they get between calls, right? So right now they get nothing, right? Set at 0. So Bob finishes call with customer, hangs up. If there's a call waiting in the queue, his phone starts ringing, right? Whereas like if you set this to say 15, when Bob's done with that call, right, the system will wait 15 seconds before it offers him a second call from the queue. Force away on reject or missed. That means if an agent misses a call, the system marks them away and they have to mark themselves ready again in order to take calls. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20 seconds. Now, originally when queues were introduced, you were only able to take calls on VoIP phones, right? So zip phone, soft phone, or even the web phone. We have since introduced the ability to accept calls with a cell phone or a landline, so you may want to increase this to 30 to 40 seconds. And again, when calls reach a cell phone or landline, they're not able to be transferred away, right? That's the endpoint. Now, once you have a queue set up, over here on the left, you click on members. Now, this list here is all the people that are available to be in my queues. Doesn't mean they're assigned to a queue yet, but I've already denoted them as queue members. Now, I click on manage members. Right, so like when you're first starting, you'd have no one. Right? But then you come here and anyone you want to add to your queues, you would just click to highlight their name and then click on add as queue member or add as member, excuse me. And that will move them over here to the right. All right. Likewise, if you need to remove them, you would click on their name and click remove as members. Once you have your staff members assigned or associated with being with the queues, you go back here to the queue list. Excuse me. And then you click on agents here at the bottom. And click and drag your staff members over that you want to be in this particular queue. Once you have agents added, you can then click on managers and then move anyone over to the right that you want to be a manager. Click and drag like so, and then click Save Changes. Now, once you've done that, let me end this session here. So the next time any staff members that you've assigned to a queue log into dash.virtualpbx.com, right? They'll hit the menu icon. They'll have ACD queues as an option, right? So they click on that, and they would get to this page. Now they would then click on Begin Session. This logs them into any queue that they're a member of, right? So you see this one here. I'm logged into the queue, all right? But I'm red, right? Because I'm away. Now, what they should do next, click on this little phone icon here and select their VoIP or device they want to answer calls on for the queue. Now, I typically select this one here because that's my soft phone. Click on the handset again to remove it, and then I mark myself as ready. Now, I need to make sure that I'm also logged into, say, my soft phone, for example. So let me go back to my dashboard here. All right, so you see I got my soft phone here. I'm logged in. Let's go back to queues. And you see now that that soft phone is now green. Oops, I can click on that. So, and I'm green here, right? So once I clicked ready, my little bar here turned green, right? I just turned on my soft phone so that way I can truly accept calls. So for anyone who's using the Virtual PBX soft phone app and they're in a queue, right? They need to make sure they're logged into the soft phone app and they are logged into the queue and then ready in the queue to be able to take calls, right? We've had some people get logged into the queue, but not the soft phone, or into the soft phone, but not into the queue. Need to be logged into both. Now, when I'm being offered a call, my bar here turns a light blue. When I'm on a connected queue call, right, the bar turns a dark blue or navy blue. If someone calls my extension number directly, right, so it didn't come through the queue, or I make an outbound call, say I'm calling back a customer, the bar will turn yellow. And if I'm on wrap up time, it turns gold. The pro queues, they also have a performance icon here, which allows managers or admins to compare staff members to each other in terms of their performance. Um, the pro queues also allow managers to eavesdrop on a call or whisper to their staff member, right, to help them out, or even barge in. But again, check the YouTube video for more information. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So we'll click on this one here. So here I named it 408. I selected this 408 phone number on my account from the pull down. And then I just simply said, hey, when my staff members dial a 408 number from their VoIP phones, change the outbound call ID to this 408 number I selected. Right, so it looks like a local call. Oops. Now this one here, I instead made a feature code. So now I'm relying on my staff members, right, from the VoIP phone, dial *550, and then dial a number that they want to reach out to. When they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Again, with the idea that I'm trying to make it look like a more local call. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what device they're using, right? So whether they're getting a call on their cell phone device or on their Yealink phone, it would show up here, right? They'd have a little blue bar, show you that they're on a call. You can go by devices. You can see who's available versus who's busy. Over here, you've got the active inbound calls. If there's an active inbound call, there'll be a box and show you who they're speaking to. Likewise, if there's a parked call, it will show you that it'll have an entry here and the parking spot number. Recording Manager, this will open up, by default, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It will ask you to log in using your dash login information. And then you can view your recordings, right? You can listen to them, you can download them, you can delete them. If you're making use of AWS storage, this will instead show you your AWS interface, so you can view the call recordings there. Webhooks is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to create a webhook to link your Dash account to another software, like Zapier, for example. If you're interested in this, you'd want to actually talk to our sales team. They have more information. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done to link Dash to other software. Also, on our YouTube channel, there's an introduction to Zapier webinar, which does cover webhooks because that's how we link to Zapier. But when you click on new hook here and basically fill out the form, this is some level of programming, right? So this is not exactly for the faint of heart. If you don't have any experience programming, you may not want to look into this or get someone who is familiar with it. Our services team can give you some help and some guidance. Our support team cannot. Our support team are not programmers. They can help you get your other features configured, but we're not going to be able to help you with the webhooks. And again, just check developer.virtualpbx.com. The user portal, this is an included feature. Every user has their individual user portal, right? So like for instance, I can check my voicemail messages here, right? I can see the date, the time, I can listen to it, I can download it, and I can click here to mark a message for deletion. And now it's gone. Call history tab. I can see my call history. I can do the date range. So I can go back, say, look at September and see my call history there. The fax tab only works for users that have their own faxes or own fax box, right? So they can see their fax history. The contact list tab, this is your Dash account contacts, right? So your standard users can edit this, right? And the only reason your admins can edit this is because they can add new users or groups, etc. right? But for most people, this is essentially read only, and it's only internal, right? There's nothing external there. The conference tab, for any users that have conferencing enabled, this is where they would go to edit their conference room PIN numbers, right? So their own PIN number from being a moderator and their participant PIN number. Here's where you can adjust if people come in deafened or muted. Here's where you choose if people have plain entry and exit tone when they join or leave a conference. When you're in a conference, when you click on the little plus icon here, that allows you to invite other Dash users to your conference. The lock icon, right? So you can lock a conference so no one else can join. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can hang up the call, meaning you end the conference. Also, when you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And then we have the settings and devices tab. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Specifically right there. Put a little check mark here. Then they put in the +1 area code and phone number, no dashes, parentheses, or spaces, and then click on save. And that is everything. Do apologize, we ran long today. Had some weird display issues going on, and I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today, and we will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m.